Hello, and thank you again for joining us today on this Human Design Collaborative. I am Dyanna Marie with Transcending Ascension, here today joined with Tah Groen from Living Our Human Design. How are you doing today, Tah?
Oh, I'm doing great, Diana. Thank you so much for having me here, or for us to be continuing our weekly show. Such a good
Yes.
thing.
I love it. We've been doing this for a while now. I think this is show number 8, which is a beautiful number to bring it in that infinity symbol back to the beginning. And let's start our audience off with the basics, the bare bone basics of human design. How Ra got it all started, how he pieced it together in the best way you can to formulate into its own, what is the human design origin story?
Wow, that's a good beginning question. And it's such a mind question. I remember, I just want to go on one little story first. When I first got my reading from John Martin in Hawaii, I asked him that question. How did it start? Where did this all come from? He goes, "Oh, that's just a mind question. Stop." He wouldn't even let me go there. But I am so mind oriented. My cross is 70% in my head, and ajna. So I'm on the cross of dominion. So it has everything to do with mind. So that was my first question. Where did this stuff come from? And so since then, that's where I like to start. That's where I like to start.
Yes.
So yeah. So Ra Uru Hu, he was a reluctant messenger. Reluctant. He does not want to call this channeling. It is more like an experience. He had a 2-week experience on the island of Ibiza and downloaded the information. I don't even know if he likes the word downloaded, but just had an experience where it was incredibly painful, and he just drew by hand the images that we are using today for human design, which is the mandala, the outer to inner, right? And so, are you familiar with what the outer, inner, what those rings are representing?
In the
Just
mandala
curious.
period or in
Yeah.
human design?
In human design and the mandala that it creates, because it really is a mandala.
A living, breathing mandala. I did not
Yeah.
know that, but that is miraculous because one of my favorites, Carl Jung, like he didn't even, or I'm hoping it's in a book that doesn't exist yet, but that the mandala represents us and the universe and our evolution. He would draw one every morning as his own meditative practice and said, like, the wisdom in a mandala goes beyond what it's how we get to places we don't comprehend yet. So I'm very fascinated. Please tell me how that relates here in human design.
Right. And then the mandala would be sacred geometry. So we're in the sacred geometry, which we both are fascinated with, and math and numbers. So basically that's what we're talking about, is this natural image of sacred geometry, and we are that. So the outside is the I Ching, uh, and that's ancient. And then we have the planets coming within that. And then we have our centers, our 9 centers. And when the planets line up to location and time and space on the planet, then we have these specific geometries that are impacted in the design, that are very specific, very specific. So yeah. So from that, how detailed do you want to go?
Well, I love that right there because that's exactly what I saw with human design, just from my own like intuiting what it was when I saw the symbols and just knowing how astrology naturally works. That it was, and I think we've mentioned this before, that divine emanation, but coming through, that's our blueprint. So, like the divine emanation, the Ensof, even in the Kabbalah language, like how it is the all and it comes down, but then how it makes us is going through a blueprint. And so human design is essentially our blueprints. So how I know it's connected with I Ching, and I've seen how they make the lines. I used a diagram of someone showing that in one of our last videos of how, but I can't pretend to actually understand like where they go from astrology, the Kabbalah, and I Ching. And would you be able to explain how that's correlating together over the same image?
And the DNA, I forgot to mention our DNA matches the hexagrams, the 64 hexagrams. So it is all divinely, mathematically correct in the coincidences, not coincidence. We know that it overlays exactly to the number of our DNA. So I forgot to mention that. And so then go ahead and ask that question again.
So how does it interlay together? Because I knew they used the hexagram, so they're using it in a DNA way, and that's fascinating because there's so much information in the hexagram and the I Ching. I'm a fan of the I Ching, and how it works also with just this. It's prophetic, but it's in such a it's like the mathematician's version of prophetic. You know what I mean? It's not whimsical, it's not woo woo. It is straightforward. These numbers and these numbers mean this. And it's just so laid bare as a fact. Like we're finally getting to a tangible place where we're looking at magic as a fact, as a mathematical fact. And
Right.
and that in the regards of human design, how are they, would you be able to explain? I couldn't pretend to be able to explain it, so it's fine. Math is not my thing, but I can see the truth in it. I can understand how, I mean, numbers don't lie. So when they line up, they line up. You know what I mean? When the math
Yeah.
works, it works. And how are
Right.
they doing that between the I Ching and astrology and then making the symbols? Where are they finding the connections for that all to come together?
Oh my gosh. I think that I don't know exactly how, but my mind wants to say that from larger to smaller, right?
Yeah.
And setting up the centers was the key to everything, the 9 centers, and then drawing lines, the geometry from this to that, like the impact of the planets on those specific gates. And that's how it happens. So the gates are key, which is the I Ching, the planets, space and time, and then it all just flows like into the center, right? Because
And then
that's what you
there's, yeah, and then they're essentially using your astrology only numbers to show it that prints on the entire structure. So you take, because you're taking your birthday, your time, the same thing in astrology,
yeah.
and you're throwing it down on. So that would make astrology, it's, does it have a bigger factor? Like, is astrology the biggest factor in human design, or it's just how you, like when you're casting the I Ching, it's just how you cast down, and the way it falls, it's still gonna have. That's how it has way more variables. The zoom out to the zoom in as you come down in on the channels. But the only real factor coming from us as like the partaker in the human design is our astrological numbers.
Right. The where you are born in time and space. And then that is how the geometry goes. That's it. It's period. And it's just the mandala that gives us the precision, the precision. But yeah, you're right, it's based on the planets. So we have sun, earth, and if you look on each side of the chart, you have the design side. We've talked about this in other shows, so if you haven't heard some of the description of the red and the black, you'll find it in some of our other shows, where the design side is a calculation 3 months before, and then after we're born, you have that other calculation. And that's when you have the chart. So it's
Nice.
really
So
important, the 2 datas, the 2
yeah,
points.
so it
Yeah.
is using two
Yeah.
different sets of numbers then.
Summers.
It's
Yeah.
using
Yeah.
the birth and then the 3 months before. So they
Before.
just do an exact 3 months before then. So the same time, the same
Yeah.
place, exactly 3 months before.
Before.
Interesting.
Yeah. Degrees.
Interesting.
Degrees before. Yeah. Somehow it's all in degrees. 88. 80. 88 degrees before.
Oh, yeah, on our 8th episode. Love it. That's
Yeah.
funny.
Oh my gosh, that is funny.
Yes,
You
it's funny.
can't make this stuff up. It's so good.
No, and I can see why that original teacher would say that's a mind question, because we can really get lost in the mind aspects of reality. Like if you're to watch an astrophysicist, I just watched the movie Hidden Figures, where that shows the girls that helped make the rockets go to space, and the whole movie's filled with their math, and they're going, "Look, this is how we can go to space," and it's just
Yeah.
like, I
Yeah.
believe you. I believe your math.
So good.
But like the ability for the average person, it's almost like math becomes like a magical power on its own. The
Mhm.
ability to, because you can't teach it. It doesn't, like they try to drill that into us in class. And you're either going to be an astrophysicist level mathematician or not. And there's a certain degree when it comes to, like we both watched that sacred geometry video where we can both understand that you, because we can all see correlations. We can see, oh yes, this is matching this. They're two completely different things, yet they're matching. Like the pyramids we see in Egypt, they have the same stories, how they match and they match. And there's so much in this earth that sacred geometry matches, and that's where we can understand. And it would be beautiful as we pull more. There's a guy, what's his name, Rupert Grant, I want to say his name is. He just started a podcast. He used to be like a really like rich entrepreneur and just could not ignore the spiritual anymore, and he came back and he's helping teach spirituality. But he came from that, like he just understands this stuff in a way that like only a certain amount of people get the gift of understanding the numbers of sacred geometry. Like that is a gift. Like I always talk about now, I wonder if it's correlated with music. I always wish I had the talent for music, and I wish I had the talent for numbers, because you could just, there's so much you could do if you understood the numbers, which human design gives us. It gives us that template to do that. Like it gives us the template, and I, like I said, it's a mind thing, because we don't have to understand it to see that it works, because we're not just blind faithing here. You could see it works. You could see the charts. You could see they line up, and you could see they make sense. That's all stuff we can understand. And then from there, you go with it and you see it. So from there, once we lay it all together and we have our numbers and the channels are born, what would you say is the meaning of the numbers when they shift? I know someone that was born 3 months early. Would you say in that regard, because there's no such thing as time and space, that that soul would have chosen to be born early specifically so that they could have a different human design chart?
Yes, that answer definitely is a yes, and we get this question quite often. What happens if I'm premature or overdue and the due date or cesarean? It None of that matters. The only thing that is the constant is the birth, whatever time it is. Doesn't matter the circumstances around the birth. It's only when the baby has come out of the mother, then that's a calculation. And accurate birth time is really important. Yeah, too.
Because you know why I ask this is what I see happening in our future. As I've talked about with genetic modification, how we can choose if we have a boy or a girl, that's a daunting future. But one thing that we could do with human design in the future that we can induce and we can delay is that you can have people deciding when their child will be born. Like how I told you, my son, that's the one over here making all the noise, on that specific day came this thing that caused him to have problems with communication because of a certain retrograde and the way it matched with
Hmm.
a different planet. That caused his delays. That, but divinely ordained. So I'm not going to argue. But this is we're gonna, in the next coming decades, people might already be doing it, but be toying with playing a little more God than maybe we should,
Hmm.
by birthing our children earlier or later, depending on what we specifically want their charts to hold. Like, oh, get
Right.
married tomorrow, you'll be more successful. Like,
Right. And it's along the same lines as wanting to change your name. I mean, it is kind of the same, where you want to change the frequency of your name. And if you could change the date of your birth, I guess, yeah, especially on a cesarean, you could pick the date. You're like, oh, I'm going to run my human design chart on that day. Absolutely. People could do it right now.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's
I
one of
don't know.
those
Yeah.
dilemmas we'll have to decide how we
Yeah.
feel about it.
Ab-
It's definitely taking
Absolutely.
into it.
Yeah. It's wild.
Perfect. So
So
when you're when you're I'm trying to get into how you learn this. So take me through then the first few months in school. What's the first things they teach you in the actual human design school?
I can hear your son. It's so cute. He's playing right next to you.
Yeah, he's got water and soap, his favorite thing.
Oh, that's great. So, the first was what that question, where did it come from? And the experience and how, and we were given the story of how Ra had that experience on Ibiza, and then the I Ching and the planets and all of that. So exactly how you just started. And then we went into the type or a type. That would be the next big question for sure.
So what's the aura type then to you? Like how does that describe that to us then? Let's go step two. What's the aura and type and is that our profile or is that separate?
That's separate. That is
Okay.
the 4 different aura types on our planet. The majority of the planet has a generative capacity. So they generate fuel within them in the sacral. There's a number of fuel or places that are called motors in the human design chart, but the most important motor is the sacral, which is meaning that anybody with a defined sacral has an aura of a generator, and it's open and enveloping, brings people, places, and things to us. So talk about the law of attraction. It's pretty much that feeling of experiencing this pull, this magnetic pull towards you as a aura or a light field that is bringing all, like a big hug, pulling it all in. So that's the generator. That's one of the types. We're here to respond to
So the
life.
aura is our type then. So the aura is
Yes.
our overall type.
Type.
Okay, good to know then. So
Yeah.
that's how the types and we all understand auras. We all I mean
Yeah.
in the spiritual world anyways, we understand what that means. So that gives us a visceral way to hold on to and tangibly imagine what our types mean. And
Yes. Through
that's
the aura.
interesting. Would you say it's similar in just space astrology, like a Sagittarius aura? And what are you? You're
Virgo.
Virgo
Virgo.
aura. Okay, yeah. So would you see that as the same thing? Like how? Because you could tell there's like an essence to each one.
Wow, that's a good question. There is a whole exploration and experimentation that could be done around the astrology matching human design, but it's so not that way, because there are Sagittariuses who are projectors. There's Sagittariuses who are reflectors. You know what I
True.
mean?
Yeah,
So
one of my friends is they're a Sagittarius generator. Yeah.
yeah. So any type could be any sign in
You see it.
astrology.
That's where things get subtler though, because I can tell because I'm a walking analyst. I am always analyzing everybody, and I always try to get there like in my friend, because you I mean if you're going to make friendships and you're going to make you want to know, right? So I started to study her in that way. She's my boss, the one I was working with. We're friends beforehand, we're still friends now, but it's interesting because I don't there's not a lot of Sagittariuses, they're very rare. So getting that experience and then seeing the difference that makes with a generator is it's fascinating. So then seeing a Virgo manifesting generator is very interesting because my daughter's a manifesting generator too, but she's a Gemini, and I feel like in just my own learnings that flows that Gemini is almost like a manifesting generator already. So a Virgo manifesting generator is very interesting. That would make you very like good at like productive in art. I can almost see that happening. Like
Yes, actually, I am. If you were to ask what would be my superpower, it would be an artist. Yes, for sure. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It's important though not to get what diluted. And so that's why I said it's a nice experiment. Yes, for you, Dyanna, just to kind of play with like the signs and the auras at the same time is great. But when you're studying and when I'm giving readings, we don't bring any of that in. We just deal with the aura type, and then the strategy and authority, and then the definition, right? So as I was speaking of aura, the reason why we have the types of aura is because of the definition, because of the channels, the color in the chart. So that's a great question as well. What does the openness mean? What does the white mean? And then what does the color mean, right?
Yes, we've touched on that a lot in this show. I feel like that's one of the things we've touched on the most because it really shows the variance there in your aura, in what's closed and what's open. And so would you be able to tell us how that happens? Like what is the process, like the mechanical process as it goes into your chart, like your numbers going into your chart that shows what's open and what's not?
So we call it impact. So, or well, exactly what we were talking about at the beginning, how the two the two calculations, the red and the black. So say you have 88 degrees before you were born, that's an impact or a color, because you have a calculation that it's a graph and there's a point. And then the other side on the black has another calculation, and then they come together and they create a channel. And then that's the definition. One center to another center is the definition. And then that's what creates the aura type. And that's what creates your true self. Because everything
the
white,
channels.
yeah,
Okay.
everything white is where you are getting impacted by other people who have definition, or by the transits. That means the planets. And what else? Yeah, that's it. The other people, the transits, those two things.
Okay, so the channels flowing through the graft are what is going to decide what lights it up or not. So really the channels are the beginning aspect of the human design.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
And understanding what center to what center. Like, oh, that's my body to my ego. That's what you have. I have my strong body going to my ego. And we talked about this last show, how the aha came when, like, oh, that's it. When my ego, remember you lit up about something when you wanted to do something, it's your ego, and you're like, is that my spleen? I'm like, yeah, that's your spleen, because your body, your spleen is your body, goes right to your ego, your willpower. So whatever you have the will for is connected directly to your body, and that's your inner authority. So that's your splenic authority. Does that make sense?
Yes. Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. And a question occurred to me actually while we were discussing this, as talking with the numbers. Do you guys, who is capable, because an astrologer, like a top level astrologer, most people that call themselves astrologer wouldn't actually be able to do it, but they can manually cast the chart. When it comes to human design, because computers have always existed, are you taught, or is anybody taught how to manually cast the chart, or how does that work, or is it a computer program from the get-go?
Wow, that's great. I would love to know how to do it manually without the software, because what happens if we don't have access to the software? Scary.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, Ra was drawing them by hand, and he was teaching people how to draw them by hand, to do it by hand.
Okay, good. So
Yeah.
it is a
Yeah.
skill that can be done manually.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Okay, good. I'm
Good
assuming it's
question.
way, could that
Yeah.
it's be huge, because if you're actually doing astrology, I've tried learning astrology once upon a time, and I was just like, I'll stay a novice, because like actually casting a chart is wow, and there's so much math involved that
Yeah.
it's just, there's only, like I said earlier, a certain amount of people that would even want to get into that amount of math. So it's good to
Right.
know, because well, computer programs, I mean, I want to trust them, but they're subject to even errors. It could accidentally be giving false
Yep.
information. So as
Yep.
long as like human is able to come in, and this is where you might get differences in chart information, although I haven't even found that really. Like I use a different program than you, and they show it in different ways and explain it in different ways. Like mine was like dark white versus clear, and like little
Mm-hmm.
things like that, and pink and
Yep.
blue versus like so there
Right.
was little bits of variance, but overall majority the same, because like you said, we do want to, I'm always both. Like we want to be able to definitively say what's what, like you're saying about keep it pure in the human design. But at the same time, I think it does our consciousness good to spread it out. Like, let's throw it all in there. What's human design? And then a bigger, that's your astrology. Like, and we'll just, I think we're just going to keep pushing this out until we are able to, and it sounds very computeristic, but it also sounds like you might have a happier life. Like instead of following society, follow your charts, follow what's meant for you, follow the divine plan. And all these charts and the detailed depths we can get to with them can save us so much trouble. Like imagine hitting 20 years old, and instead of wasting 10 years going, what do I do with my life? You like instantly know. And it's not just because a piece of paper told you, because it's from the soul, your soul is going to agree. And
Right.
there
Right.
you go.
Good, good. So, any other basic questions that people need to come back to? So, we've covered where it came from. We've covered one of the aura types. There's 3 other aura types. Did you want me to
Go
feel
through and
like,
let each of them know an aura type.
yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah. Give them
okay.
each a
So
description.
then continuing with the aura types, we have the projector, which you are, and the projector has an open sacral center. So reminding everyone that the sacral center is key to this. And Ra, it's so interesting. Ra talked about, well, I want to wake up all the generators, because if we wake up the generators, then we'll have ease and flow and satisfaction on the planet. But it's not that easy, because there's so much conditioning with this sacral center, where we're not doing what the body mechanics wants. We're only conditioned by where the mind wants to take us. So human design, first of all, is getting out of the mind and coming into the mechanics of the body. So generator 70%. And Ra thought that, well, if we can wake up all the generators, then it will be easy. But it's not easy. So then he's moving to projectors. He goes, okay, projectors are our guides, our teachers and our guides. So we're going to work on the projectors, and we're going to give them 20% off of the Jovian archive. And you still have it. But projectors have 20% off. All you have to do is say is, I'm a projector, prove your chart, show your chart, and you get 20% off, because
Oh,
you're
where is this? Break this down for our audience in case they care. So,
the jovianarchive.com. Go to that site, and it's 20% off as a projector. So just make sure you ask.
okay, we'll both put this link in in our description below.
Yeah.
So anybody
Yeah.
watching that wants to go check that out, go ahead.
Yeah. It's there. It's real. And why? Because projectors are all about the other. You're here to be our teachers and our guides. Your aura is not open and enveloping. It is focused and penetrating. Goes right into the heart, right into that G center. And I am seen when I have a projector in front of me. It's like, oh, there I am. You're doing it for me right now. Focused and penetrating. And your aura then has to wait for an invitation, wait for an invitation to come, so that you can offer your expertise and your guidance, and not just to push it out there uninvited, because it won't be well received. A generator is going to reject you, and you'll end up, projectors, not being seen, recognized, and end up bitter. And bitterness is the keynote. for projectors.
Yes, and that is so very real. I just want to add a note here for projectors because I see this a lot around online that projectors, when they hear they need the invitation, they take it as they're being bossed around. I keep hearing it because I find it everywhere. It's the projector because they have the bitterness, and then they hear, oh, you need to wait for an intention. And when someone's still stuck or invitation, when you're still stuck in bitterness, you're going to get offended much more easily. And they think that they're taking it as a society rule. Oh, I need to wait for an invitation. You don't have to wait for an invitation. Technically, you are a human being that can do whatever you please. But if you are an enlightening being that wants to cultivate your energy and utilize it more beneficially for yourself only, like you can take the penetrating feeling of any of the other signs off the table and just think about what it does for you. You yourself are going to drain yourself of energy and get more bitter when you don't understand this. Now, does that mean you need to sit back and always wait for an invitation? No, I don't. I don't. But I know that when I get rejected, that's why, and that alleviates.
I love it. I love it.
As long as
I
you're
love
going
it.
yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Because we're conditioned and it's hard to turn on a dime and to stop the habitual way of being. So we do it gradually. And now you even know what happens, the keynote to what happens when I overstep my bounds and I wasn't invited into giving advice. Usually it's about giving advice. Oh, I see you need to do that. Why aren't you doing that? Yeah, and the invitation doesn't, it's energetic. It's not you deciding you have a hobby. You can go do your hobby, or you can go do your share. If you're going to share on social media, go ahead, share, do that. But it's the invitation between people, energy between people. A formal invitation to especially if you have an open G, formal invitation to find your place, like whether it's a home, a job. Yeah, so it's those things, a relationship. Those are things that you're waiting for the invitation for, because then the energy is welcoming and inviting for you to share, and you will be well received, and you will be recognized and successful for your skills and your talents. Yeah, really helpful for projectors. It's not, you don't just sit there at home and just wait, think somebody's going to knock on your door and come out and get you out. No, you got to do your stuff.
Yes, exactly. It's just understanding that penetrating energy we have and just having compassion for the rest of the people. Like just having compassion and I grew up in a projector family. Like I think we should talk about that sometime. I'm a family of 6, like my parents projectors, my siblings projectors. Only one of us are not.
Wow.
And she hates us all probably. Because so I know what it's like though, because even a projector to another projector can be like, hey, because we can do it just as easily to each other. Like we're not immune to what a projector does to people just because we are a projector. So
Exactly.
if you know a projector, you can learn what that feels like. And it is like, but sometimes it's necessary. I'm all for it. I always say that when I'm teaching people, pain is not your enemy. Pain can be your friend. So if someone's telling you a really harsh truth, instead of being like, be like, ow, why does this hurt? That's what I'm always trying to get. Why does this hurt? Because sometimes when we're breaking all this conditioning, it's going to hurt. You mentioned that like waking up the generators because they're 70% of the population, and it being the sacral keeps them more asleep, because I noticed that in general projectors are always ahead of the curve. They're always more awake, even if they're not accurately awake with accurate information. Like, because you see it in conspiracy theorist type people, they're still like aware that something's up. So it doesn't mean they're naturally like Buddha enlightened. It's not that advanced in that way. It's just they see through the lies. They can. Is that the sacral?
You're asking me about projectors and why they're so wise? Is that what you're asking?
Why they can see through the lies, and then you mentioned earlier how generators have more trouble with it because of the sacral.
Yes. So one of the most important concepts to get is that generators, that's me, and This guy's a manifester, right?
No, this one's the other projector. He's my mental projector.
He's your mental projector.
Yeah, this is
Oh,
Andrew.
yes,
That's the mental.
nice.
Oh, you just dumped my coffee.
Oh, I'm so sorry. So he
I like
is,
watched him on screen do that too.
yeah, he's already in the fifth dimension. He's already hanging out there.
Yes, that's exactly what it seems like too.
Yeah.
He can just laugh and laugh.
I
And
love
like,
it.
okay, or equally
I
cry. And we're like, what's wrong?
I love it. Okay, so what I was saying, I love this. Whoever's hanging out in this episode, I'm really proud of you. Yes. So the key to the difference between a generator and a projector is generators are all about self. Know thyself. Projectors are here to know the other. They want to know about everything. That's why they're the best question askers. They ask the best questions. And then what do generators need? Can you ask me a question? I don't know. I don't know myself. Right? So then you're helping to guide that sacral energy so that we can know ourselves. And that's what you want to guide. As you're a teacher and a guide, you are here to do that for the generator. That makes sense?
Oh, 100%. If anyone here reads my Twitter at least once a day, I write something about knowing thyself.
Right.
And
Yeah.
why it's so vital. So 100%, that is the calling.
Yeah.
And then so we've discussed, we actually did a whole episode on manifestors.
Yes,
If
we did.
anybody's interested in hearing. And then we briefly have discussed reflectors. Why would you say reflectors are so rare? Why are they so rare? What is their purpose in the cosmic scale? Because everybody has a beneficial purpose.
Yes, they're here to be the barometer. If a reflector has emitting joy, they are in the right place doing the right thing. They are in that joy frequency. And so it's really key for reflectors to actually have their aura has a Teflon to it. It's very protective and gives them this boundary where they can actually command, where they want to be when they want to be there. I guess I would think. I'm not a reflector, but I do have. This is really fascinating. My cousin, so my father's sister, has a son, my cousin, who has 3 reflector children.
That's something right there for some reason. Wow.
Yeah. And I do feel the boundaries. I do feel the Teflon. I do feel like they're not necessarily as touchy-feely as projectors or generators. They tend to sit back and observe and watch, right? And not necessarily interact or engage unless it's joyful or if it's correct for them. So I feel that energy emanating from the reflector. And they're here to mirror our frequency. So for example, generator in frustration or stuckness, that generator in the presence of a reflector is going to feel it so much more. Everything, the whole chart of frustration. Because we remember that when we look at a chart, that there's not isolation. Everything works in genetic continuity, right? So if your reflector is in front of you, they're reflecting the whole thing because every center that they have is white, undefined. And that's the gift that they are. They're here to help us process what needs to be processed. Any patterns that are not serving us, they're here to help us be illuminated. Like, oh, that's me? Yeah, that's you. And reflectors, a tip for reflectors is to realize that they are amplifying the joy, and then they're amplifying the generator stuck, frustrated, the projector bitter and feeling rejected. You know what I mean? They're amplifying all of that if we're not self. being conditioned by society. And all of a sudden you're getting that at you, and you're like, oh, is this me? No, it's not you. You're just watching a mirror, a reflection of themselves to you. Does that make sense? I know it's so hard to
It does. I have some questions actually, because they're the biggest mystery to me, because I don't know if I know any. I mean, because I can't go around charting everybody I know, but as far as I know, and from what I've learned about the reflector, I don't even think I know any. I can't think of anybody that would be one. But you said something very, so they have all open centers,
yes.
yet they have a Teflon aura that almost seems counterintuitive. Like it's almost creating, like, you know, when you're doing energy or quantum, like you can get like the bomb does this, where when you throw off a bomb, it flew out, but then will suck you back in. Like, is it creating some kind of vortex energy thing within them,
Whoa.
that
Whoa.
they're open
Whoa.
yet blocked at the same
Oh, I'm
time?
getting such tingles. That is so true. Okay, I love my truth buttons. It's like so powerful. Feels amazing. That is it. Do that bomb thing again, because I think that's it. That's totally it.
Yeah, you just
It's
you
like,
imagine it. Yeah,
and
you
then
can
it
feel
goes
it
in.
how it goes out
Yeah.
and then will suck you back in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wild. That's it. Quantumly. I can feel that. That's powerful. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it's almost like they're the reverse of that though, because they're so open. It's been sucked in and now it's coming out.
Yeah.
Where they have that, just you don't get in, which is interesting, because as a projector, this is why I understand why we should be careful, is because I've understood I have to be careful. Like there's certain people I can't say anything to, because they'll do it, and then like they'll let me like live their life for them, you know what I mean, and then they'll be all like, oh, this didn't go well for me, and it's okay, because you're not supposed to ABC do exactly what I say. That's just a suggestion that you're supposed to read into your own truth
Yeah.
and live it that way.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that, like, I would love to test it with them, you know what I mean, like test his work on you, like if I could even get through to a reflector.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Yeah. It all depends too, because we know that the crux of human design is differentiation. So even though you have a reflector in front of you, they're going to be so different than that reflector over there. It's all the math. It's all the geometry, because what was it? 1,080 variations for one gate. Remember
Yeah,
that? Yeah.
it's
So,
true.
yeah.
I have found with astrology and human design, it's similar to cooking, how it's ingredients. So you're using ingredients, and certain people have more than others.
Yeah.
Like how I have the friend that's Sagittarius but generator, but the notes and the flavor of Sagittarius is still
It's still
there.
there. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes.
And then like you do this dance, like learning that my whole family was projectors. We all seem so different, but then I can see that overarching, that we would all give people advice. People always came to our family for advice. My parents were like wise sages for the
Yeah.
neighborhood.
Wow.
Like there was just all
Yeah.
these things that checked
Yeah.
so many boxes. I was like,
Yeah.
this part of
Yeah.
us is projecting, because you can just see the correlations, like we're a study.
Yeah. And I feel that with my projector children, that
I
they're
was
my
just gonna
wise
ask.
sages. I just love them. They are incredibly wise. And I just take it for granted, that I have this many projector children. Oh my gosh, it's just incredible. Should I count them? I have three. I have two daughters, born in January, so they're Aquariuses, but
Oh,
completely different. And then I have a Taurus son who is born in May. He's a projector. And then two grandbabies who are projectors. Uh, and then one grandbaby who's a manifesting generator. So
that's
it's fun.
extra.
Yeah.
That
So it's so
is, that is, it's good to have around you, especially because I know like you clearly are a spiritual teacher yourself, and you like to bring this information out. And the fact that you're using that, do you ever use your children in, or like you ever get your children involved in this, like in this, what are they looking to do with their lives? I'm assuming if you have grandchildren, some of them are adults. And what are they using their project? Because I find a projector is not suited for average society, and no one really should be, but especially a projector.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's great. One is an artist. She's in Australia. She's has the 2-year-old little ego projector, splenic projector, like you are. And she's a working artist and a mom at the moment. You know, that's a full-time job. So she does not have childcare yet. But as soon as um, the the age is appropriate, she's going to preschool. So yeah. So I hear a lot of oh yeah, this ties in to you as well, how it is really difficult for projectors to parent because the energy is inconsistent, unreliable. It's not there.
They never
It's
invite you. They never invite you. A
yeah,
mom is always got to be like, burp, 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 burp.
yeah,
Even though I told you
yeah,
I tried the free world, it didn't work. You have to
yeah,
give them rules and structure, and they do not want to hear it.
yeah. That and then the balance between the micromanaging versus the free range child. And then if you are a not self projector mother or father, you could end up wanting to order instead of question, you know, because generators, if you have generator children, manifesting generator daughter, always questions so that she can grow her inner authority. So, how is it when a projector knows what to do, right? And knows what's best for her? Oh, you're going to do it this way because this is how you do it. And you're like not helping her grow her inner authority. If you do that, you need to ask her questions, right? And so then if you're not in alignment with that, you can really mess it up, right?
It's true. And that's why I think we had so much like contention there. It's funny. That's where my manifesting son is helping me because he does not put up with it. I can barely. He was sitting behind the stairs earlier and I got him. I was like, that's dangerous. You could have, because the door opens this way, right? And I'm like, and he was so mad at me for such a logical, instruction.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh my goodness, the level between them. Meanwhile, my daughter, I was quite the micromanager for her. And I always thought it, like, before I even got into human design, like, she's a Gemini and I'm a Sagittarius. And I always thought, like, because that's the polar. And it's just like, no, if I learn, thanks to him, to take it slower. And
Yeah.
then I have been asking her questions just because it gets her to make sense of what she's doing.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
she's kind of
Yeah.
neurodivergent herself,
Yeah.
and but that world is there, and when I ask, the answers are there, so it's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. So that is what I'm witnessing in my adult daughters, how challenging it is to parent, especially in this way, because you can't control. You want to control and micromanage because you can guide them because you're so wise and you're the sage and you know and you see 5 steps ahead, but that's not how you grow a child. You grow them from inner authority. So that's difficult, but they're doing it, and we talk human design all the time, so that's beautiful. And then my son, he is a 3-6 profile, which I am a 6-3, so I understand the disconnect right now from his inner authority. He's absolutely just an emotional being, and you ask him what he's feeling and he's like, I don't know. You know what I mean? He doesn't know. So we're just working on inner authority with him, which is an emotional being. Yeah.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
funny too, because that just
Yeah.
reminds me of my husband.
I don't
Anytime you
know.
do the whole cliche girl thing, what are you thinking? I don't know, I wasn't thinking. That's not
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah,
How are you
exactly.
not thinking?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's it. So that's it. So it's fascinating. So I think we talked about all the auras because that's the most important. That's the most important. And then
Yeah, we
maybe,
didn't do
yeah,
manifestor, but we did a whole episode on
yeah,
manifestors.
that's
If you
good.
wanted
Yeah.
to do a quick verb on them, and then we can
Oh,
end it for today because that was
okay.
great.
Oh, wonderful. So the manifestor aura, because we're on the aura structure, basically that's what we're talking about. The structure of let's just recap. So the structure of a generator, most of the planet's generators, open and enveloping. You can see that in your mind. Open, enveloping, pulling everything in like a magnet. And then the projector, penetrating and focused, with an aura that pretty much got pokies out there. It's like, oh, come over there, you know, and one-on-one. You do better with one-on-one. And then the reflector, I forgot to say this, sampling. So it's almost like sample, but it does have a Teflon, but it's more, I don't know how, a reflector. Yeah, I love your analogy of the bomb and that. Yeah, that was beautiful. Reflector, like a mirror, but yeah. And then so manifester, tight ball, repelling. Why? Because they want peace. And that repelling is for their safety, for their protection. It's a good thing. It's not bad. And then they're peaceful and compassionate, and their ultimate goal is for peace. So imagine how that initiation from the mind, or the ideas to manifest something, all has a theme of peace. It's really beautiful. Really, really beautiful.
Yes, I never thought of that. I like that.
Yeah.
You can almost look at, that's amazing actually. Like, because you have 70% of the population that the divine wants to be satisfied. Like, go ahead, you be satisfied. And then about 22% that God wants to be successful, but the entire mission is to bring divine wisdom. So succeed in divine wisdom. And then another one where they are to manifest, but that insurance that it's to be of peace.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's good. It all goes together. It's really fascinating. It's beautiful. So beautiful. Yay! Good. Yay! He's so joyful.
I know, he's usually
all right. Yeah, good. All right, that was wonderful. Wonderful.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being with us, everyone, today. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm sorry for the background noise, but I hope you definitely learned something. I did.
All right, yeah. Thank you so much.